Thank, thank you, Cam. Thanks, everybody. So I have to tell you that this is a 50-minute presentation, which I agreed to condense to 40 minutes to find out that I have 30. So I will go pretty quickly. And I love the logo of the skyline. So I thought, I don't know where that got in. I thought I would show you the beautiful skyline where I live, and I have a picture of me paddleboarding with my two grandsons. I look a little less elegant than the person on the left, but that's who I am. And I work for a company called Cohasset Associates. We're a small consulting company in the U.S. Helping people build records management programs, IG programs, policies, et cetera. So what we're going to talk about today is mapping your IG journey with a 90-day plan and what the relationship is between IT and IG. So is anybody here in IT? Only Pete, okay. So does anybody have well, we're going to get into that later. So we're going to talk about a couple things. The relationship between these two is really, in my view, that you can't have one without the other. IG, information governance, cannot happen without the help of the IT department to implement that. And at least I'm surmising that most people struggle with, petabytes, terabytes of unstructured data that isn't really classified. Nobody knows what to do with it. Nobody wants to get rid of it. Well, we all want to get rid of it, but nobody will let us get rid of it. So we need IT to help us do that. You can't go file by file to delete these things. So we need to figure out a little bit about ourselves, who we are, and what we want to accomplish, because if you don't know where you're going, this famous quote from the Cheshire Cat, right? If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So our big thing in terms of engaging with IT is to first take a step back, figure out kind of where you are at with your program. So, and we have things we call a current state maturity assessment tool. We actually have one at Cohasset. There are thousands of maturity assessment tools. All of them will give you roughly the same information that you need. So we tend to look at a couple different things. What's your organizational commitment to the records information management program? How do you define your information lifecycle management? And how are you getting interdisciplinary alignment? So I'll talk a little bit about each of those, but the assessment tool that we use, and I would recommend this to anybody, we have 4 rating categories. And what are our phrases are, what ad hoc, I can't even read them. I forget what they are. But one is really you don't really have them. The other is you sort of have them. The other is you're in pretty decent shape. And finally, the nirvana, I guess, is that everything is in place and it's automated and everything is fine. The reason that we go for 4 is because in our experience, if you give people a 5-point rating scale, everything ends up as a 3. Well, not everything, but most things ends up as a 3. So, and then, or people will say they're a 2 and they want to be a 4. So the 4-point rating scale at least helps you identify where you might think you might need some improvement. So, I think I skipped a slide, but given my time constraints, that's fine. We talk a lot about interdisciplinary alignment. So I guess everybody here is in a records management function, is that right? Records management, information management function. And I'm thinking most of you are in some form of government. Is that correct? Yeah, so, okay. We like to talk about information governance with the, I don't know, somewhat worn phrase, it takes a village. But you can't have information governance in an organization if you don't have the commitment of the business area. And we use business, just a quick aside, I don't know if everybody, like RIMPA is probably 75% governance members. ARMA, where I have my history, is 75% corporate members. So maybe this is a little slanted still toward the business side. But if you don't have the business or the leadership commitment, you have to have people who understand the risks that are inherent in your current program, ethics and compliance. Obviously, you need the records management function. You need law, information technology, information security. And depending on your organization, Some of these might be combined, or you might even have a few others that are split out. You might have a separate ethics area and a separate compliance area, as an example. But the point of this is that with information governance, we see as a little bit of an umbrella over all of these different functions, and it's up to us in information governance to bring them together to properly manage information. Primary reason that it's up to us is because if we don't do it, nobody will. So if we figure out where we are and we figure out where we would like to be, so you know, what are your RIM considerations? What would you like to see happen? And then how does that align with the business priorities? I was listening to somebody talk a little bit earlier today, and the essence of what they said is something that resonates very well with us, right? Is that you're not going to turn business people into records managers. You're not going to turn finance people into records managers. So we as the records people have to align ourselves with the business priorities, the business drivers, what's the culture, and I think culture is extremely important. I took a job a number of years ago, and I was working on building a program, and I laid out a whole communications plan of how we would introduce it, how we would sell it to get buy-in, and my new boss said, we don't need that shit, excuse me, but he said, we'll just tell them. And I said, well, I don't think that'll work. And he said, around here it does. And around there it did. He sent out a note and said to everybody, effective Monday, you will classify your documents, and you will do, and they did. And I was kind of shocked, but anyway, it worked. That's the culture. So you have to understand the culture, and continuous improvement. Obviously, the world changes. I mean, everything keeps marching on. Regulations change. I mean, I just, you know, I go back to a little bit of a U.S. thing, and somebody, you know, the vendors were parodying our past president, Trump, today, and taking classified documents to his private residence, et cetera, et cetera. So the world, the United States now reacts to classified documents a little differently than we did, say, 2 years ago. So, and I understand there are some issues around New South Wales archiving. Did I get that right, or am I, well, whatever. Anyway, so thinking about your future state, where is it you would like to end up with your records management program? Think about the framework of your IG. What's the structure? Do you have an organization in place? Do you have good policies that are in place that people understand and they follow? Do you have a good training program? Do you have a good onboarding program? Do you have a good retention schedule? I think you might refer to it as a BCS. Is that correct? I don't know. I call it a retention schedule because it, right? This is what it is. This is how long you have to keep it. So, and then obviously, most people here, I think, are using M365, right? So what are the IG settings in M365? And you'll hear a lot of different presentations, particularly in the year 2023, that will help you set your knobs and dials within M365 for what you hope to achieve, you know, and that's up to you to decide for your organization how you want to handle retention, how you want to handle deletion, et cetera. So we work on something that we call a where to store and share strategy. My view of records management is that in its basic form, it is really quite simple. You need to know what you have, you need to know where it is, and you need to know how long you have to keep it. And now, increasingly, you need to also know how soon you have to delete it, because all the new privacy regulations, et cetera. But it's really, in its essence, that's what we do. So we work on a thing called a where to store and share strategy, and that lines up with the Microsoft 365 settings. So we often say, look, if you need it for a year, put it in OneDrive, and then you delete everything in OneDrive after 1 year. That scares some people, but it scares people until they get used to it. So, and then often we do a data map. What data do you have? where is it going to go if you're transitioning, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to get to IT in a minute, since that's what I'm up here to talk about. But IT relationship. So the first question to ask, how is your relationship with IT? Not on speaking terms, you could be on a break, working on it, teamwork. Does anybody not on speaking terms with their IT department? Well, that's a good thing. Anybody thinking it's absolutely it's over the moon, it's the greatest thing in the world? Well, so most people are somewhere in the middle, right? We're on a break or we're kind of working on it. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about strategies that we've seen work in terms of engaging IT. So this is a book, I don't know if some of you may have read, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'll just tell you a quick side story. I read this book, I don't know how many years ago, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I said, this is the way you live your life. And my daughter was getting ready to go off to college, and I said, you have to read this. I mean, this is, before you go to school, you guys have to read this. This will change your outlook on everything. And she dutifully read it and said, that's the biggest piece of trash I ever read. So people have children, they will understand that. But within the 7 habits of highly effective people, there are 2 that I wanted to talk about, which was seek first to understand, and then also looking for the win-win. And that's really what I want to talk about in terms of engaging IT. So we look at where we're at today, what's our assessment, where we're at with our RIMPA program, where we might want to go, and now we want to go understand IT. And IT has a very different set of instructions, if you will, from their leadership team. All right, so IT, and I'll look at Pete because he's an IT guy. Nobody ever says go out and manage information and destroy records and set up retention guidelines. They say, look, you have to manage the business of IT. You have to do this so that when people walk in the morning, fire up their computer, it starts, and they have access to all of the things they're supposed to have access to. So you manage the business, right? Or I'm sorry, that's really like running the business. You manage the IT, what's the budget, how much do we need? Grow the business by implementing new technologies, hopefully listening to the business needs, and then saying, hey, this is the new technology. I don't really have it on here, but it's also saying no to the people who want to implement the rogue technologies, and you say, no, we have a corporate standard, or we have a company standard, whatever. And then you protect the business from people hacking, data breaches, and earlier somebody talked about the inevitability of these breaches, but IT really helps us prepare. But if you read down that list, you don't really see much about having IT help with the information management issues. And so this is where we think seek first to understand is a good step forward to getting involved. And I don't know, you probably have been through this. IT runs out of space. And we come in and we say, hey, let's get rid of stuff and we'll give you more space. And they say, no, we'll just buy more. And buy more is usually the recommended solution. And so, of course, we'd like to change that. But so, and then seeking the win-win, we need to partner with IT with our definition of where we're at, where we want to go, and then how that meets with their objectives of the things that they've been asked to accomplish. And it's sometimes easy, sometimes a little more challenging, but in my experience, the world of IT becomes your best friend, because the role that we can play in the information management world can help them implement plans and tactics to better manage, to meet their objective of running the business, okay? So, I mean, I worked with some companies that, from an email management perspective, does everybody have automated deletion of email? Couple, yeah. So if you don't have automated deletion of email, we worked with a company, they actually had two people full-time, whose job every day was to move email accounts from from servers to servers, so that the servers themselves did not exceed the capacity. two people full-time, and that's kind of a lot of money to be allocated to that. So what we're saying is if you want to deal with the IT world, understand these 4 objectives that they have, understand where you're at with your program, understand where you want to go, and see how that can be accomplished by helping them with their objectives. So, you know, we have some hints, right? If IT wants to manage, right? Managing the business is all about the budgets, and despite what it sometimes seems to people in my part of the organization, IT does have budget constraints that they're often put under. It's only the law department that never has any budget constraints, right? So, let's say saying that the law department's the only one that never has a budget and always exceeds it. So, it's good to get the law department in this as well. But so you can help them with their cost pressures by looking at your own support requests, seeing how it can fit in with some of the things that they're doing. You can be an advocate with the IT department to increase their staff count. I've never encountered an IT department that isn't looking to add to their head count. So we can be advocates for them in that regard. In terms of running the business, kind of the things I just mentioned with emails and servers and moving things around, the legacy state of information in most organizations hampers IT's ability to actually run the business. They have different architectures. They're bringing in new technologies on an ongoing basis. And those technologies, when they're introduced, will add to the information storage, information generation problem, right? So, I mean, it's a little side thing. ChatGPT is it's a lot of fun, right? So people have ChatGPT and you say, hey, ChatGPT, write me an essay on this, and, you know, do some research on that. And you know, does everybody have ChatGPT? You're using ChatGPT, right? It's great, but every time ChatGPT does a response, you create information that's stored in your company. And so these new technologies that come in have a lot of tendrils that reach out within the bowels of the organization, and we can help the IT world when those new technologies are implemented say, hey, let's put some controls around that. And again, there's nobody from Microsoft in the room, but Microsoft is the worst offender, in my opinion. Microsoft introduces new options, new technologies. They don't really advertise it well in advance, and it just shows up in your email, right? They introduced this thing called Microsoft Loop a number of months ago, and it just showed up. And I was talking to a client about it and said, you got to be careful about that. And they said, oh, we don't use it. And I said, oh, I would check on that if I were you. And she came back to me 2 days later and said, well, I found out we have 763 active users of the Loop component in Microsoft, which had no controls. No, anyway, I have 10 minutes. I better move on. So again, these are all partnering for the win-win. What are the issues within your IT department? How can you line up with them? Growing the business, and you know, growing the business doesn't mean more and more information stored in more and more locations, right? Growing the business means getting better technologies to help with the business needs. And so the IG consulting world can help with that. We can help with decommissioning and how what we do with the information that's stored in legacy in systems that were about to be decommissioned. Identify what doesn't need to be moved. It can, whether it's saved somewhere in some cold storage somewhere or actually just deleted. Either one of those are better alternatives than loading up a brand new system with useless information. So if we want to, and then protect the business, obviously we're the ones that understand the sensitivity of the information that's available in the organization. So how do we classify the information? And once it's classified, how do we make sure we have the proper protections around it, whether it's encrypted, deleted, or whatever. And finally, you know, we offer IG consulting services. I have had a number of opportunities through the years, to work closely with the IT department. And you know, there's a client of mine now who went through some of these things with her IT department, and she's now involved in a lot of other IT initiatives because they forged such a close bond of how they can help each other. So, I put together top 10 hints for improving your relationship. Treat IT as a valued business partner. Ask them about their strategies and how you can align with them. Don't avoid them if you see them walking down the hallway. Don't duck into the restroom. If you're strategizing, bring them in early. Ask them to explain things to you in terms that you can understand, not technical. Don't wait and try to order them around and order takers and things like that. And I draw on a parallel, like if you're building a house and you want to put in a sink, you can tell IT plumber, put the sink in over here, or you can say, where's the best place to put the sink? And they can tell you. And generally, they know more about those things than I do, certainly. Describe the business problem you're trying to solve. Don't tell them how to solve it. Let them observe your work, let them see how you do. And this is kind of a repetition, but don't tell them exactly what to do. The best solutions are the ones that are developed when you can describe the issue you're trying to solve and collectively develop a means to solve it. If you think you have the answer and you tell IT what to do, you might be very disappointed because they'll do exactly what you ask them to do. And they often have better ideas. And this becomes just a regenerating relationship. So the more you engage them and ask for their input, the more they like to partner with you and say, hey, this is how we can help you. And again, it's not an IT problem, all right? I mean, every one of us is in an organization with business goals, business objectives, and there are issues that we can solve to manage our information better, whether that's like serving our customers, really, ultimately the constituents, right? What Gus talked this morning and said, it's all about the customer, right? So how do we use our information to better serve the company, better serve the customer? And all the information that we have, we know how we can manage it, classify it, protect it, and we can bring it forth in a way with IT's help that facilitates the use of that information, all right? So, I have too many stories. I was involved in another project in my days at Prudential where we weren't processing customer communications into us. So a customer would send us a letter and they would call us maybe a week later. Well, we never got that letter. We didn't, like the customer service person couldn't access that letter. Not only couldn't access that letter, they couldn't access any letter that person had sent in like 2 years. And so it makes for a very unhealthy customer interaction when they're clearly frustrated saying, I've communicated this with you. And it's like, well, yeah, but we don't have good, at the time, imaging, but it's information management. We didn't have good, and so we had to go about saying, look, when a letter comes in, it should be imaged that same day and populated in the system so you can provide the right level of customer service. So takeaways from this, start with identifying opportunities to enhance your IG program. Where are you at today? Where would you like to take it? And then put a little roadmap together of how you think you could get there. There is no IG without IT. IT has to be a major part of managing all the information. We need each other. And that might be too small for you to read, but the word information is actually split in half. So in order to have good information governance, we need both IG and IT. And, partner with them to advance your program. From Toy Story, right? You can do great things if you have the right business partner. Wow. So I think I have 3 minutes left, but I'm finished. I didn't want to put the picture of me, idiotic me, on a paddleboard up again. So this person looks so much better. But this is my contact information. I will be around all day today. I'll be around all day tomorrow. Happy to chat with you more if you have anything you would like to talk about. That's my contact information. I think these slides will be made available. If they're not made available, let me know, and I'll make them available to anybody. You're more than welcome to have them. If we have one question, I have a minute and a half. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, why doesn't IT come to us and ask for our help? Why do we have to go to them and ask them to help? You know, I don't have a real good answer to that question, but I mean, IT, you know, the people in IT are focused on a lot of different goals, like run the business, manage the business plan, and they're not aware of a lot of these issues. So, I mean, you know, it's a nicer way to say it, like we in IG understand the technology and a lot of the issues with technology. Most of the people in the IT world don't think about this. I think that's why we have to go to them. And once they get engaged, they begin to learn a little bit more. Again, this has been my experience. And then they're actually more interested in helping even more. But, you know, it would be nice maybe if they came to us and asked for help. Once you get that relationship established, then you can expect that they will come to you for help. The one client that I mentioned, her IT contact is always calling her for help because he has recognized that the IG policies, procedures, the legal and compliance aspects of IG can help IT achieve their goals. We have to point that out to them because it's not readily apparent in most of my experience. So we have to go and point that out, and then over time it just gets better. So, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Michael, so information governance and IT, in your experience, in my experience, I've seen them work together well where they're in the same unit.
Yeah.
In your experience, is it 50-50, is it 40? You know, what is that percentage? That's the first question. And the second part of that question is cyber and information governance, working with us as records people. How do you see that relationship?
Yeah. So most of the organizations that I deal with, IG and IT are in two completely separate pillars. Occasionally, IG is part of the information technology world, but generally they're separate pillars. Legal, compliance, operations. And you know, it's the same thing, they can work well together. The cyber world, in my mind, is part of information governance, that we need to be aware of the cybersecurity needs. And then you're gonna have the cybersecurity nerds who drill down to make it work. But from an information governance perspective, we have to make sure we've done everything we can to protect from cybersecurity. So, and we can help carry the message of how do you manage information, how do you manage security concerns? Well, we support multi-factor authentication, right? So Cam's gonna give me that. Okay, thank you.